I thought my wife and brother hated each other until I found a five-star hotel bill charged to our shared credit card. Turns out they were on a secret getaway together. I never thought my life was perfect, but I did think I had a pretty solid understanding of the people in it. My wife, Claire, meticulous, structured, and always in control, had been my rock for the past 6 years. My younger brother, Jason, reckless, free-spirited, and never one to take anything seriously, was the complete opposite of her. And they hated each other. At least, that's what I thought. It was a normal Wednesday night when everything started to unravel. I had just finished dinner and was lounging on the couch, scrolling through my emails when a fraud alert popped up on my phone. My credit card company flagged an unusual charge, $3,500 from the Shoreline Grand Resort. I frowned. I hadn't booked any trips. Claire and I had been too busy with work, and Jason barely had enough money to cover his rent, let alone stay at a five-star resort. Thinking it was a mistake, I clicked the transaction details and immediately saw a check-in date. Last weekend. Panic crawled up my spine. I called the hotel, fully expecting them to confirm it was an error or a case of stolen card information. But when the receptionist answered, her voice was way too cheerful. Yes, Mr. Carter. We had a wonderful time hosting you. Would you like me to email your final receipt? I gripped my phone tighter. No, actually. I wasn't there. I think there's been a mix-up. There was a brief pause before she responded. Oh, I see. Perhaps I can confirm the guests for you. The reservation was under Jason Carter and Claire Carter. My blood turned to ice. I barely managed to thank you before hanging up. My hands were shaking as I stared at the phone. Claire and Jason, at a five-star resort. Together. That couldn't be right. It had to be a mistake. Claire despised Jason's recklessness, his inability to hold down a steady job, and his constant need to borrow money. She never hesitated to call him out at family gatherings. And Jason had no problem firing back, calling her uptight and controlling. Yet, my card had paid for their stay, and neither of them had said a word. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Claire slept peacefully beside me. My mind raced with 1,000 scenarios, none of them good. Had I missed something? Had they been hiding something all along? I tried to recall their interactions over the years, the snarky comments, the sarcastic smiles, the clear dislike. Was it all just a front? Was there something else between them? The thought made me feel sick. I needed proof. The next morning, I played it cool. Claire kissed me goodbye before heading to work, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. Jason, as usual, was impossible to track down, but I decided to wait. By the afternoon, I had a plan. I started observing Claire. Subtle things stood out. There was a new dress hanging in her closet, something elegant. Too fancy for a regular night out. There was sand in her car, which didn't make sense considering we lived miles away from the coast. Then there was Jason. He had been posting beach photos on Instagram, vague enough to not draw attention, but now I saw them for what they were. He hadn't tagged anyone. No faces. Just glimpses of cocktails and ocean views. Still, it wasn't enough. So I did something I had never done before. I checked our shared credit card transactions in detail. Hotel charges. Room service. A couple spa package. A fucking couple spa package. That was it. My chest felt tight, and my vision blurred as I tried to rationalize what I was seeing. Jason was broke. There was no way he paid for it himself. Claire never hid purchases from me, yet she hadn't mentioned a weekend getaway or any big expenses. My head spun. There were two possibilities. They had an affair. There was some explanation I wasn't seeing. I wasn't sure which was worse. That evening, I tested the waters. We were having dinner. Pasta? Claire's favorite. When I casually asked, "Hey, did you hear about the fraud alert on our credit card?" Claire didn't even blink. No. What happened? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Some weird charge from a hotel. The Shoreline Grand Resort. Ever heard of it? For half a second, her fork hesitated. Barely noticeable, but I saw it. Then she smiled. Nope. Sounds fancy. She lied. Right to my face. Something inside me cracked. I forced a chuckle. Yeah, I told them it was a mistake. I watched her reaction. Nothing. No guilt. No panic. Just calm indifference. I barely tasted my food after that. Jason was next. The following day, I texted him. Me. Hey man, haven't seen you in a while. Where have you been? Jason. Yo, just been working. Trying to save up. You know how it is. Mia? You go anywhere last weekend? Jason? Nah, just stayed home. I stared at my screen. Jason had always been a liar, but this was too easy, too smooth. So I pushed. Me. Weird. My card got charged for a hotel. Guess someone stole it. Jason. Damn, that sucks. You reported? Me. Yeah, called the place too. Said you were there. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. I called. Straight to voicemail. I sat there, heart hammering in my chest. Claire lied. Jason lied. And now, I had proof that they were hiding something from me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the receptionist's words. Jason Carter and Claire Carter. The hotel. The spa package. The secrets. I needed answers. But this wasn't just about confronting them anymore. I needed the full truth. And I was going to find it, no matter what it took. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The image of Claire and Jason checking into a 5-star resort together played on an endless loop in my head. My wife. My brother. A luxury weekend getaway. Hidden from me. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. If they were having an affair, why be so reckless? Why use our shared credit card? That was a rookie mistake. Something even Jason, who wasn't exactly the brightest, wouldn't do. Claire was meticulous, a planner. She triple-checked everything. There was no way she'd be so sloppy, unless she wanted me to find out. Or, more disturbingly, unless she didn't care if I found out. That thought suffocated me. I needed answers. But I wasn't about to storm in and start throwing accusations. Not yet. Instead, I decided to play the long game. The next morning, Claire acted completely normal, like nothing was wrong. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work, humming to herself as she grabbed her coffee. No guilt, no tension. She was either the best liar in the world, or she really didn't think I knew anything. I waited until she left before grabbing my phone. Jason was still ignoring my calls. I decided to pay him a visit. His apartment was a mess, beer cans, takeout boxes, and piles of clothes strewn across the couch. I knocked, then knocked again harder. After a few seconds, the door cracked open. Jason stood there, bleary-eyed, rubbing his face like he had just woken up. Dude, what the hell? It's early, he muttered. It's noon. Jason squinted at his phone, groaned, then waved me inside. Whatever, man. What's up? I walked in, scanning the room. No sign of Claire, thank God. But I wasn't here for a casual visit. I turned to face him. Why'd you lie to me? Jason stiffened. What? I tossed my phone on his coffee table, showing our text conversation from yesterday. You told me you were home all weekend, but the Shoreline Grand Resort says otherwise. Silence. Jason's expression didn't give anything away, but I saw the way his fingers twitched, the way he exhaled a little too slowly. He was buying time. Look, he finally said. I didn't want to get into it, all right. Into what? My patience was razor thin. Jason ran a hand through his messy hair. It's not what you think. Then tell me what the hell it is. Because right now, it looks really damn bad. He sighed. Claire and I, he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. We had to take care of something. It was supposed to be a surprise. I almost laughed. A surprise? He nodded, his expression serious. We weren't supposed to say anything yet. Claire will kill me for telling you. I folded my arms. Then tell me. Now. Jason swallowed. It's about you, man. Something big. But I swear, it's not what you're thinking. I stared at him, trying to decide if I should believe him. His voice was steady. But Jason was a damn good liar when he wanted to be. You expect me to just trust you? I asked. After you lied to my face? Jason's jaw tightened. Look, I screwed up. I should have told you something sooner. But you need to trust Claire. She loves you, man. She wouldn't do that to you. His words hit me harder than I expected. I had spent the last 24 hours drowning in paranoia, convinced my wife and brother were betraying me. But what if I had been wrong? What if I was playing right into whatever game they were running? Still, I wasn't letting him off the hook that easily. If this was some big surprise, why charge it to my card? I demanded. Jason hesitated again. That part was an accident. I clenched my fists. Bullshit. I mean it. I was supposed to cover it myself. But Claire booked the place and forgot to use a different card. She was going to pay you back, dude. I didn't believe him. Not fully. But there was something about the way he wasn't smirking, the way he wasn't bullshitting just to deflect. I needed more than his word. I needed proof. I left Jason's place without saying another word. I had learned one thing. They were definitely hiding something. Whether it was an affair or some other messed up secret, I still didn't know. I wasn't going to wait around for answers anymore. That night, while Claire was in the shower, I grabbed her phone from the nightstand. My hand shook as I swiped through her messages. Nothing unusual, no text from Jason, no secret conversations. But then I checked her deleted messages. And I found one. Jason, are you sure he won't find out? Claire, not unless you mess this up. My heart nearly stopped. What the hell were they talking about? I copied the message, emailed it to myself, and put her phone back exactly as it was. If there was still a small part of me hoping this was all a misunderstanding, it died right then. The next day, I drove to the Shoreline Grand Resort. I had to see it for myself. I walked in, pretending to be a guest who had stayed recently. With a fake smile, I asked the receptionist if I could get a copy of my room charges for expense reimbursement. She typed away on her computer, then slid a printed receipt across the counter. I scanned it quickly. Room service, wine, the spa package, and then private meeting room rental, $500. My pulse quickened. A meeting room? Why the hell would they rent a meeting room if this was a romantic getaway? My mind spun. I had been so sure they were sleeping together. But now there was something else. Something bigger. I clenched the receipt in my hands. Whatever was going on, it wasn't just an affair. It was something much worse. And I was going to find out exactly what. I walked out of the Shoreline Grand Resort with my heart pounding like a war drum. A private meeting room? This wasn't some careless affair. This wasn't two people sneaking around behind my back, tangled in some hotel sheets, drinking expensive wine at my expense. This was something else entirely. But what? I gripped the receipt in my hands, my fingers curling around the thin paper like a lifeline. Whatever Claire and Jason were doing, they didn't want me to know. And that meant I had to find out. That night, I came home determined to play it cool. I needed to hear her lie to me again. I needed to see the guilt, the cracks in her story. Claire was already in the kitchen when I walked in. The scent of garlic and rosemary filled the air. She was making my favorite, pan-seared steak. Guilt cooking. I took a slow breath and leaned against the counter, watching her move with the same effortless grace I'd fallen in love with years ago. It felt like a lifetime ago now. Long day? She asked, not looking up as she stirred a sauce. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice steady. Weird thing happened today. She finally looked up, raising an eyebrow. Oh. I stopped by the Shoreline Grand Resort. For a split second, a fraction of a second, she froze. It was so quick I almost missed it. But I didn't. She set the spoon down, wiping her hands on a towel. What were you doing there? I shrugged. I figured since my credit card paid for it, I should check it out. Claire's face didn't change. She was good. Too good. She tilted her head slightly. And, I said slowly, I found out you and Jason rented a private meeting room. Silence. Then she let out a short laugh, sharp, nervous. Okay, wow. So you really have been digging into this. I folded my arms. What else was I supposed to do, Claire? My wife and my brother sneak off to a luxury hotel, charge it to my card, and then lie about it. Claire sighed, rubbing her temples like I was the problem here. Like I was the one being unreasonable. You weren't supposed to find out, she muttered. Anger flared in my chest. So you admit it? She looked at me then, really looked at me. And for the first time in days, I saw something in her eyes. Not guilt, not betrayal. Fear. Not fear of getting caught. Fear of telling me the truth. Ethan, she said carefully, this isn't what you think. That's exactly what someone guilty would say. Claire's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, we heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Jason, right on cue. The doors swung open, and Jason strolled in like he owned the place. I turned to face him. Sit down. His smirk faded. Why? I pulled the receipt from my pocket and slammed it on the table. Jason's eyes widened. Claire's shoulders tensed. I could feel the moment everything shifted. Tell me the truth. Right now. Jason swallowed hard. He looked at Claire, and for the first time, I saw a real panic in his eyes. Then he turned to me. I swear to God, Ethan, it's not what you're thinking. Then explain. Jason ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. He looked down at the receipt, then back at me. All right, fine. You want the truth? I didn't respond. Just waited. He sighed. We weren't at the resort for what you think. We were there for you. I narrowed my eyes. Try again. I mean it, Jason insisted. We were. Claire cut him off. Just tell him everything. Jason nodded, exhaling sharply. Okay, you remember your grandfather's cabin? The one you used to talk about? I blinked. What? The place up north. The one Grandpa left to that asshole cousin of ours, even though he promised it to you. A dull ache spread through my chest. Of course I remembered. That cabin had been my childhood safe haven. It was where my grandfather taught me how to fish, where I spent summers away from my parents' divorce, where I felt peace. And when he passed, he left it to my cousin James, who sold it without a second thought. I hadn't thought about that place in years. Jason leaned forward. Well, we found it. My heart stopped. What do you mean? You found it. Claire finally spoke. Jason tracked it down. The new owners were looking to sell, but it's not cheap. Jason nodded. We wanted to buy it back for you. As a surprise. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The hotel. The secrecy. The private meeting room. It wasn't an affair. It was a goddamn real estate deal. I sat there, staring at them. My entire world tilting on its axis. All this time, I had been spiraling into paranoia, convinced my wife and brother were betraying me. But instead, they had been doing something incredible for me. And I had been the asshole. Why didn't you just tell me? My voice came out rough. Claire's eyes softened. Because we knew you wouldn't let us. You never let anyone do anything for you, Ethan. You're always the one taking care of everyone else. Jason nodded. We wanted it to be a gift. Something you didn't have to fight for. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. They weren't lying. They had planned this whole thing for me. For me. And I had been seconds away from destroying everything. I let out a shaky breath, rubbing my face. Jesus Christ. Silence hung between us for a long moment. Then Claire stood up, crossing her arms. So, are you still going to accuse us of sleeping together? Jason smirked. I mean, I get that I'm charming. But, shut up, I muttered. For the first time in days, I laughed. A real laugh. Because holy shit. I had spent the last week unraveling over the biggest misunderstanding of my life. And now? I was getting my grandfather's cabin back. I looked at them both. Tell me everything. Jason grinned. Gladly. I sat there, still gripping the receipt from the Shoreline Grand Resort. But now, it felt like a relic from another life. A life where I thought my wife and brother had betrayed me. A life where I had been ready to burn everything down. And now? Now, I was the idiot. Claire and Jason sat across from me, both waiting for me to process everything. The awkward tension was thick. And for the first time in my life, I had nothing to say. Jason broke the silence first. So, are you good, bro? I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. I don't know. Claire crossed her arms, leaning back against the counter. You seriously thought I was having an affair? I met her eyes. What the hell else was I supposed to think? You and Jason suddenly disappear for a weekend, book a luxury hotel under my card, lie to my face about it, and then delete messages? That's shady as hell, Claire. She sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. We didn't tell you because we knew you'd overthink it. And guess what? You did. Jason smirked. Dude went full-on private investigator mode. Should have seen him at my place earlier. Thought he was about to waterboard me for answers. Shut up, Jason, I muttered, rubbing my temples. The weight of everything still pressed down on me. I wanted to be angry at them for keeping this from me, for making me feel like I was losing my mind. But the truth was, they had done something incredible. For me. And I had spent the last week treating them like criminals. I cleared my throat, forcing myself to focus. All right, start from the beginning. Tell me everything. Jason leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. So, a few months ago, I was drunk scrolling through real estate listings, and I don't know, man. I just thought about the cabin. The one Grandpa promised you. I swallowed hard, memories flooding back. Summers by the lake. The smell of pine trees. My grandfather's voice telling me stories by the fire. Jason continued. I found out the current owners were thinking of selling, so I called Claire. I raised an eyebrow. Why Claire? Claire rolled her eyes. Because unlike you, I actually know how to negotiate a deal. Jason nodded. She was the brains behind this whole thing. I just tracked it down. I glanced at Claire. So what happened? She exhaled. It wasn't simple. The owners had other buyers interested. And the price wasn't cheap. We needed to act fast, but we also wanted to make sure it was something you'd want. Jason jumped in. So we planned a weekend trip to check it out. Make sure it was the real deal before throwing down any money. Claire nodded. We booked the resort because the cabin itself was in rough shape. and we needed a neutral meeting spot to finalize negotiations. Jason grinned. And, the spa package? That was all Claire. She shot him a look. I needed one good thing after spending a weekend babysitting you. Jason shrugged. Fair. I listened, letting the pieces fall into place. They had rushed to get this done. They had put their own money on the line. They had risked everything to give me back a piece of my childhood. And I had accused them of the worst. I felt like an absolute idiot. I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the ceiling. I don't even know what to say. Claire's expression softened. Say you'll come see it? I blinked, looking back at her. What? Jason grinned. The cabin, dude. It's ours now. The papers went through this morning. I stared at them. You're serious? Claire smiled. Very. Jason clapped his hands. Which means we are taking a road trip this weekend to see your new old cabin. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Instead, I just exhaled. I can't believe you guys did this. Jason nudged my arm. We knew you'd never do it yourself. Bro figured we'd make it impossible for you to say no. Claire reached across the table, resting her hand on mine. You deserve this. Ethan. And for the record, I would never betray you. I met her gaze, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I believed her. I squeezed her hand. I know. She smirked. Took you long enough. I let out a small laugh. Yeah, I guess it did. 3 days later, we were on the road. Claire drove. Jason controlled the music, and I sat in the back, staring out the window as we wound through pine-covered back roads. I hadn't been here in over a decade, but it still felt familiar, like coming home. Jason turned around in his seat. You ready for this? I nodded slowly. Yeah. As we pulled up to the cabin, my breath caught in my throat. It was still there, a little run down, a little weathered, but still standing. My hands tightened into fists as I took it all in. The dock by the lake, the old wooden swing, the stone fire pit my grandfather built with his own hands. It hit me all at once. Everything they had done for me. I turned to them, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you. Claire smiled. Don't mention it. Jason grinned. Oh, I'm mentioning it. Every chance I get. I chuckled, shaking my head. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. I had almost lost everything because of my own doubts, my own paranoia. But now, standing here, I realized the truth. Family wasn't about perfection. It was about forgiveness. And sometimes, it was about trusting the people who love you, even when it feels impossible. That night, we sat by the fire, watching the lake reflect the stars. Jason sipped his beer, smirking at me. Oh, by the way, we still have one last surprise for you. I groaned. Dude, no more surprises. Claire pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a set of keys and a title deed. I frowned. What is this? Claire smiled. It's yours. I blinked. Wait, you mean? Jason threw his arm around my shoulders. Yeah, man. The cabin belongs to you. Claire and I just helped make it happen. I was speechless. For the second time that day, I felt my throat tighten. I looked at both of them. I don't know how to thank you. Claire grinned. Just don't accuse me of sleeping with your brother again. Jason burst out laughing. Yeah, that was insane. I chuckled, shaking my head. Yeah, I'll never live that down, huh? Nope. And honestly, I was okay with that. Because for the first time in a long time, everything was exactly how it was supposed to be. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking Reddit cheating stories happening around you.